Hey YouTube, welcome back! So, Dream Catalyst, book I self-published. You can buy it on Amazon.com. Only available on the American website, unless something changed by the time this was published. But it ships globally, so if you're Canadian, you can buy on Amazon.com. Just look up Dream Catalyst by Samantha Mirandola, or click on the description in this for this video. I've attached a link that will take you directly to that Amazon page. I've also attached my Instagram and LinkedIn and stuff like that if you want to connect with me. Thanks for so far sticking along with this. I'm doing a free audiobook of my entire book, novel, so I'm releasing it every Monday at 6 p.m. So if you're tuning in to see Chapter 5, then that's where we're starting today. If you're confused as to what I'm talking about, go back a couple videos and probably need to start at the beginning, or if you missed a chapter, just go back. But this is Chapter 5, Stardust. So, if you have the book, then Stardust is page 82. If you don't have the book, then just listen along. And don't forget to, leave an Amazon review if you can, because that kind of stuff helps me out. And if you refer the book to a friend, if you like it, and post on your social media that you've been, really liking the book, it really helps me out if you do that. Even if you can't afford to buy the book right now, even if you just kind of help by, getting the word out about it so that people who are interested in purchasing it know about it, that's how you can help me out, and I really appreciate that. So, without further ado, let's get into Chapter 5, Stardust. And I have Stardust, the little star here, because artsy tings. Okay. Opening quote. "The artist starves to feed the empty." Signed by B. It had been 3 days and 2 nights since I last saw Caprice. I have been traveling on the road since. My place of refuge for the past 2 nights were public gas station restrooms. From one, I was discovered and evacuated to the street. In the other, I was fortunate enough to obtain a few solid hours of shut-eye before being awoken by 2 drunken girls searching for condoms in the broken vending machines in the corner of the restroom. I was exhausted. Felt as though I had been biking for an eternity, and part of me wondered if I would ever get a full night's rest. I hummed to myself along the way. It kept my mind preoccupied from reality. I never considered myself a nomad. It seemed careless to travel without working toward a destination. I knew nothing of the towns I passed or the roads I traveled on. My journey stretched out to new lands that not even my imagination had ventured to prior. I wanted to travel far from the cul-de-sac, as one possibly could on bike. I managed to fit the ukulele onto my bike. I tied the hollowed instrument to my backpack with a scarf I found on the sidewalk. The instrument softly tapped against my thigh as I rode, creating a soft, inconsistent drumming sound. I finally made it to a city of substantial size. All of its buildings were new, differing drastically from the Mennonite town a ways back. There were no rustic, old-fashioned buildings here, no straw hats or fairy shops. Instead, there were various tall rectangular buildings, some vertical ones, others horizontal. The sides were built of gray cement. The sheer glass windows that scaled the building sides were also rectangular. Today, it was rainy and the sky looked off-white and gloomy. The last day that I had seen the sun peeking through a transparent sky was the day Caprice and I sat together in her baby's skyport. While I worked on the interior, Caprice insisted she climb to the top to overlook the view. She was very pregnant, and I urged her to reconsider, but she was adamant. I scanned the ground for loose nails or tacks, and in seeing that there were none, I invited her up. That day, the sun was so bright that the sky was crystal blue. If anything, the sun was almost too bright. I had to squint to keep my eyes focused. I thought back to the sky fort my dad had built me in my childhood. Zeal and I created an imaginary world within it. This was when he was still a dream catalyst, before the shrinkers consumed him. Ever since that day, it had been nothing but off-white skies. Even as the sun was rising, I went from a dark, raven black night to a mystical blue, and finally back to an off-white sky. No sunrise rainbowed the skies at each melancholy night into day. I had grown tired of the gray. I wanted warm weather, even if it would drench me in sweat as I traveled on my extensive bike ride. I envisioned pulling over to rest at a beach for a day. I was tempted to soak my feet in the water and lay on the clean sand. I passed a tiny beach on my journey from the Mennonite town to this new city. Perhaps it was why the beach was on my mind. The problem was that it was still so cold that the beach was closed. I looked around once again at this strange city. It differed quite drastically from Caprice's fairy shop. This city was one of wealth and class. The people were dressed drastically different from the Mennonites in the preceding town. Each person wore a different shade of neutral and off-white tints. Some wore black and gray as if they were attending a European funeral. The people were divided. Half wore suits and buckled shoes. The other half were worn through sweatpants and oversized hoodies. The wealthy, who wore business suits and held designer purses, and dressed their arms with expensive jewelry. They looked as though they could afford them. The people here wore watches, and the people here. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. The people here wore watches, but they did not look like my silver watch. Theirs were digital. Some of the women had their hair pulled back into short ponytails, while others wore theirs down in short bob cuts. All of them wore their hair flat ironed straight. All of the boys had different variations of the same haircut. None wore their hair any longer than a few inches. Most had buzz cuts. One particularly professional lady, likely in her early 20s, wore her coarse, dark hair in a bob that framed her tiny face. She held in her hand a work portfolio that looked larger than her. Her figure was quite petite. She entered the city bus with an expression of wonder glued to her face, contrary to the other bus riders who wore expressions as bleak and gloomy as the rainy sky. Everyone in the city looked like clones of one another. Sure, they all dressed slightly differently and wore their hair in slight variations, and yes, their physical features all differed rather drastically. However, all wore an expression that mirrored the sky. They had all forgotten themselves in the gloomy clouds. The people here were nothing more than reflections of the sky. Sorry about that. I looked at the glass buildings and the business signs. I saw a number of impatient people briskly roaming the streets. My legs had grown rather tired. I needed to rest. I figured a city of wealth and class such as this could spare me a can of canned goods. I was quite hungry now, and while I had a $20 bill in my backpack, I was hoping to save it for a moment of desperation. I decided to ride my bike through the city's downtown. I rode my bike down the wide sidewalks and past the chic window shops. I passed several with fine dining attire. The female mannequins wore busty dresses and the male mannequins wore fitted suits. It seemed funny to dress inanimate objects so well while the people were left with while the poor people were left with discarded rags. As I rode my bike down the sidewalk, I could sense the judgmental eyes from the high-class citizens of the city fixed upon me. I was quite sweaty and tired at this point. I knew I did not look my best. I had been riding for days now without much of a break, and so I did not blame my onlookers for their judgment. It was not until after a group of teenage girls passed in their matching Gucci hoodies that I began to hear the whispers. I pulled my bike off to the side and temporarily rested it on a trash can. I took my glasses off, my eyes, just kidding, and placed them in their tiny carry-on case in my backpack. I blurred my vision to avoid observing the judgmental expression of my onlookers. This worked for a while, till I heard the whispers. They got louder and louder. The whispers translated to shrills and continuous screeching in my mind. I sat on a bench by the trash can and that I leaned my bike against. I pulled out my copy of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte and I began to read. This was my 5th time reading the novel. It was my favorite book. I was at the part of Catherine's death, the part where she tried to jump out from the window and into the coldness of the night, when the cold air made her sick, and she did finally pass. Her nanny exclaimed, "She burns too bright for this world." considered for a moment what it would be like to have that phrase tattooed on my arm. If this phrase was not the staple of the book, if not so many others did not have it tattooed on theirs, I probably would have gotten it a while ago. It resonated with me so well. Poor Catherine. She lived in both ecstasy and despair. She was too passionate for the world of bourgeois marriage and suppression, too in love with the maltreated Heathcliff. I wondered then what it would be like to visit the heights she haunted with him. I imagined the two finally at peace together. They would guard their children who lived in the heights. A shame they did not have any together in life. The two lived and died in such bitter turmoil, a tragedy worse than Shakespeare. I thought back to what realists said about living in extremes. Did I resonate so well with Catherine because I was so young and capricious? Was it because, like her, I was truly alive and while others were so placid? Would I mature out of this desire to feel, or would I die in agony as Catherine did? "What are you reading?" asked a female voice from the distance. My initial thought traveled back to Reelist's mom. Then I recalled where I was, and I knew it couldn't be her. If she were here, would she call Wuthering Heights a traveler's journal too? I looked up from my book and noticed a woman in her late 30s peering down at me. She looked quite different from the others in the city. Her hair was bright purple and cut in layers. It was also short, but it was not trimmed into a bob cut like the other ladies in the city. Instead, it had jet black ombre ends that blended into the violet tones of her roots. The purple hair was so vivid in color that I forgot for a moment how gloomy the skies were above me. "Wuthering Heights," I said again, wondering what her criticism would be. I was used to people making statements about the books I read. Some were clever, others weren't. I sometimes wished that people would not ask me about what I read, but then again, when they did, I was always eager to share. Explaining the story to others helped me understand it best. "Interesting," said the woman. She snatched the book from my hands and examined the cover. "Hey!" I exclaimed. I was not used to people taking my books. I worried she would wander off with it without making a trade. Then I would have no book to read. "Give it back." "Strange cover," said the woman, ignoring my request. She examined it closely. "Why do people always put strange covers for their books? This one has an abandoned house on it. Looks rather gloomy. How does that have to do with the withering? What doesn't withering mean the wind is blowing too strong?" "Yes, it's an analogy," I said, impatient. "The house is withering because there is turmoil in her life, like a tornado." "In whose life?" asked the curious woman. "In Catherine's life." I took it she had never read the Wuthering Heights. Continued to explain the story. "Catherine is the protagonist to most of the story. She is in love with Heathcliff, and he is only in love with the idea of her." "Yes, I've read this book before," said the woman. I was in disbelief. "You read this book before?" I questioned, examining the woman. "Yes, I most certainly have," she affirmed. "And yet, you did not know who Catherine was." I did not believe her for a moment. "Nope, I did not have to read this particular book to have read this circumstance," said the woman. She then proceeded to hum a song that I did not recognize. I wanted to return to reading, but she kept examining the cover of my book and refused to hand it back to me. "So strange to have a cover of a house," thought the woman aloud. "I wish I owned this house." "Oh, no, you wouldn't want this house," I chuckled. "It belongs to Heathcliff and Catherine. If it still exists, it is haunted by them. I would definitely not want to live in a house that Heathcliff haunts." "Curious thing reading is," said the woman. "Why does the cover look like this?" "It's just this version. This is a classic. They don't all have this cover. Sometimes they just have a rose on the cover, or sometimes it's just plain blue with the title printed in the middle. Just depends on the publishing house and who wants to market it to whom," I explained. "Market it?" said the woman. She stood upright. That sure does take the romanticism out of reading, doesn't it? That people read for the sake of learning stories, not from judging covers." "Well, they do, but it's a business just like any other," I said. "If you wrote a book, wouldn't you want it to sell? Something can still be romantic and beautiful, but also successful." I wanted to return to my reading, but this woman had been preventing me from doing so, and I was beginning to feel quite aggravated. "I suppose there is some truth to that," said the woman. "Success is not bad within itself. It's just the mindset of success that I struggle with." "What do you mean by that?" No one had ever talked about success in a negative light. I was not sure why this woman was insisting it was something to be weary of. We all wanted success. "I suppose I just don't see the point of making ugly covers, that's all," said the woman. "This cover's not ugly," I exclaimed. It represents the story. It is the heights, the mansion the story is in. I don't know what else to say on the topic. It needs to be this cover for this story. But you just said that the cover can change with the publishing house, teased the woman. Fine. What about this then? I began. Why is your hair purple? Because you made a choice. You wanted to be perceived by others with purple hair. In doing so, you accept all the stigma and attention that it might bring you. You choose to look this way. You wanted people to see you with purple hair. You are marketing yourself to look a certain way to the world. The color of your hair does not change who you are on the inside, but it changes how you want to be represented on the outside. Yes and no, said the woman. The hair is a choice, but it isn't the kind of choice you are implying. It doesn't represent me at all. Neither do my dirty clothes or my oily skin. Those are just attributes contributed by circumstance. Look around you. This town belongs to the glum. I want to cheer them up a bit. The only people who smile here are the children, and they always smile at my purple hair. As for the clothing, they belong to poor circumstance and bad luck. But my soul couldn't be captured by some stupid book or some silly colors. I don't need to market myself. I don't need to sell my soul. I considered what the woman was saying. I disagreed with some of it, but I did understand what she meant. Maybe, I suggested, marketing is an art form in itself. Maybe those who market themselves or those who market their books are just trying to make people happy too. They are making their art accessible and known, so they can make a lot of people happy. So they can reach people who will never get the chance to see your purple hair on the street. You know what, kid? Said the woman. I think I like you. Mind you, I said I think. So, I still have time to change my mind. Right now, though, you don't seem like the other people of the city. It isn't the bright red jacket or the bicycle, and it's not the loud curly hair you wear either. It's something else. I think maybe it's because you read strange books about haunted houses. Maybe that's why I think I like you. The lady extended her hand in an elegant fashion and invited me to shake it. I am Yippee. I have purple hair and I read funny books, about haunted houses too, just not on paper. I prefer the auditory version. Someday, I hope to live in a haunted house because a haunted house is better than no house at all. I am not female. I know I look it, but I identify as non-binary person. They, them, it. Any of those pronouns work for me, but not she. So if you ever write about me in some book someday, you damn reader, you better not call me a she, they said. I am also a nonconformist. What is your name, reader? My name is V, I said. I hoped they wouldn't ask me what it stood for. V, Yippee asked. I don't like it. To me, you're a reader. They had got to be joking. I began to laugh to myself. Why did you ask for my name if you didn't intend on calling me by that anyway? Probably the same reason why I'm stealing this book from you, even though I hate the cover and I won't read it, they responded. I like knowing what something thinks it is before I decide what I think it is. You think you should go by V because it's the name your parents gave you, and I think you should go by Reader because it's what you actually are. Wuthering Heights thinks it should have a haunted house on the cover because of some publishing house, but I think it should have something else. I'm not sure what, but something else. I didn't know how to respond to this lunacy. You know, I decided to change the subject. I once tried to look up the synonym for nonconformist. I write songs. I was writing about this particular person, but when I looked up the synonym for nonconformist, they all had a negative connotation to them, like violent, dissident, freak, and dropout. I found this offensive because I think I might just be a conformist too. You know why I said I think I like you instead of saying I like you? I said that because you consider all of those things to be bad. Well, aside from violent. That synonym truly is negative. Yippee seems strange to me. Less strange than the mundane people of the city, and even less strange still than their desire to work such fruitless jobs. But this person was different. I was not expecting to encounter someone like Yippee in a wealthy city like this. They were still holding on to the book. If you have another book, I began, you can trade it off for that one if you'd like. I've read it 1,000,000 times. I only brought it with me so I could trade it for another. I don't have another book to offer, said Yippee, contemplating for a moment. I don't like books all that much. Read the story 1,000,000 times when my friends confide in me about some ass with a car that told them they would pick them up and bring them back to their home. They'll think for a minute that they've got their life made. They found a cute bob-cut woman with a stable job and a lovely little apartment, or a consistent buzz-cut man with a logical mind. Maybe my friend will start the business they always wanted to. Maybe my friend will have a son to go exploring the streets with and tell their stories to. Their rich partner, their beacon of hope, will take them home. They'll fuck my friend, make them feel something. Then, when my friend wakes up, those rich assholes are gone for work. They'll tell my friends they'll meet them at a coffee shop in the afternoon. They never show, and my friends will cry to me about it. I don't need to read it again, but something in the cover seems interesting. Words in books are always backward anyway. I don't like holding on to them for too long. I'll tell you what. Yippee reached into the satchel they had swung across their back. They pulled out a little black book and handed it to me. Here's your book. Yippee took my hand and stretched out my fingers so they could place the book in my palm. You get to keep this, little number, and I get to keep your book of haunted houses. What is this book? I asked. It didn't have a title on the cover. Don't you open it. Don't you dare open it until you and I have parted ways. Just say, thank you, Yippee, and then put that book in your backpack over there, and then stand up and come with me. I did as they said. Where are we going? I asked. It's funny, I thought, laughing to myself. Even though I left my old life behind to go live on my own, to make my own decisions, I still have to ask others where they are going and what they are doing. Well, reader, you're in luck. Because I may not be employed, and I may not have friends who... I may not be employed, but I have friends who are, and they like visitors with strange books and weird one-letter names. I smiled, thinking about the kinds of friends Yippee had. They seemed like the type of person who made friends pretty quickly. Yippee took my hand, and I noticed for the first time their purple nail polish. It looked as though it was coming off. As we walked through the streets, the whispers became louder than before. I was not wearing my glasses now, so their faces just appeared as blurs with bob cuts that swirled around us. Yippee was not wearing glasses either, but I don't think they needed them. Whenever someone would gaze upon them with hostility, Yippee would smile back. If someone began to whisper about them, Yippee would say, hello, and it would always be in a different little cartoon voice, mimicking some of the more widely recognizable characters. While the adults looked horrified, the children beside them giggled. We walked by a prom shop. Yippee made us go in. They said it was a detour and not our final destination, but they said they liked looking at them. The store owner glared at Yippee and I. Did they also smell the sea salt? Yippee walked to one of the poofy dresses with rainbow patterns in the fabric. I want this one, they exclaimed. Can you afford it? I questioned, looking at the tattered shoes on Yippie's feet. You don't need a dime to try it on. Yippee took the dress off the hanger and brought it to the counter. The bodice was sequenced and started to glitter from the sunlight that shone it in through the shop window. It was beautiful, and it looked as though it would suit Yippee. The dress, however, was easily $500. Considering Yippee would have no problem with living in a haunted house because it was a place as good to sleep as any other, I imagined they would not be able to afford the dress. Yippee walked to the counter and stared right at the person with the bob cut at the desk. Good evening, fine lady. I noticed this lovely dress here, and I wanted to see if it was my size. Would you do me the honor of unlocking that back changing room so I may try it on? To an outsider, the expression of the cashier would have been a stern one, but that was only because they did not see for a brief moment, before she wore a brutal stone-cold face, she attempted to conceal a smile. Yippee! I was surprised she knew their name. You cannot afford this dress. I cannot unlock the change room for you today. Hello, may I help you? Asked the cashier, turning her attention to me. She's with me, exclaimed Yippee, gesturing to me. I waved. A flash of jealousy overtook the lady. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store, or I will have to call security again. Whoa, that escalated quickly. Excuse me, I chimed in. I was just wondering if there was a way that Yippee could just try on the dress. I mean, you and I don't really know if they can afford it or not. Maybe Yippee has been saving up. Besides, I believe the customers have a right to try on clothes before they purchase them. There is no charge for that. Customers are more than welcome to try on the merchandise prior to purchasing, returned the lady rather bluntly. The customers, she put emphasis on the word, are always welcome to try on the merchandise of the Bill Boutique. Yippee, however, is not a customer. She comes into this boutique once a week and always tries on the same dress, and never buys it. The cashier was glaring at Yippee now. I corrected. Yippee smiled. They, corrected the lady, will not be permitted to try on this outfit. They made only one attempt to purchase this outfit several weeks ago, and their card was declined. If you would like to repeat a repeat of last time, Yippee, I would gladly suggest you leave the store. Yippee just wanted to try on the dress, I snapped back. What's the problem? Just let them try it on. I can buy something here, and you can let them go try it on. I'll buy a headband or something. We don't sell headbands at this store that would be affordable to low-income citizens, said the lady tauntingly. All right, ladies, Yippee said, smiling. Easy, Tiger. Yippee winked to the cashier, who somehow managed to blush and gasped abhorred at the exact same instant. I will come back when I have attained a steady income and can afford the dress. Good day, fair maiden. Yippee took an olden-time accent with a royal air to it. We will meet again. You said that last time, the lady snapped back. Don't come back here. This place is for customers only. Then I will come back as a customer, Yippee smiled, took my hand, and led me from the Bill Boutique. I was horrified by the manner in which Yippee was treated. That cashier must drink her coffee jet black. Don't worry, Yippee, I tried to reassure them as we wandered through the streets. There will be a nicer dress you can wear. Oh, that dress is hideous, exclaimed Yippee, to my disbelief. You couldn't pay me to wear a dress like that for any longer than a few minutes. I looked at them disgruntled. Yippee, what do you mean you would not wear a dress like that? I questioned. Then why did you put us both through that scene? I was beginning to get quite annoyed. Why try it on every week? The dress is ugly, retorted Yippee, but the cashier is beautiful. I wanted you to meet her. She goes by a single letter name too, just like you. Wait, I started. So you can't afford to buy the dress? Nope, I don't have a dime to my name, reassured the strange Yippee. Nor do you like the dress, even if you could afford it. If I had a bottomless wallet, I would never spend a cent on that thing, reassured Yippee. Why do you go back every week, Yippee? Here's a love story for you, reader, though I'll warn you in advance. It has no weird haunted houses and no fancy quotes. Oh, and there will be no auditory version, and this will be the auditory version. I hope you'll appreciate it just as much as you do your printed books. Yippee looked very passionate in the recalling of their mystery story. There was once a hippie named Yippee, and they traveled as far as one could until they met a lady with raven hair, new to the city. Her hair was so long and beautiful, Yippee just had to say hi. They took the same bus with her to travel to the downtown, and they talked every day. Then one day, Yippee went to the station and could not find her. They wandered the city in search of the raven-haired woman. They could not find her, but they never gave up. Then one day, Yippee saw a woman in a window. She was putting a dress on a mannequin. She had a bob cut like all the other women of the city, but Yippee recognized that raven hair from anywhere. So, every day, Yippee goes to the heart of the city and tries to get the woman with the raven hair's attention. Best way to get anyone's attention is to cause a scene. And what better way to cause a scene than to repeatedly try on a dress one cannot afford? Did you see how jealous she got today? I love seeing her jealous. Jealousy looks good on her, but not as good as long hair and loose shirts. Yippee, that's really sad, I blurted out. Stop trying to get someone's attention who does not give you any in return. It's only going to hurt you. Oh, she rips my heart out every day, retorted Yippee. But in doing so, she reminds me it's still there. She is the only one that does that for me. Whenever I forget I have a heart, I go to the boutique and have it ripped out of me again. Then I remember I'm alive. And here, down the street, this is where I'm taking you. We said nothing more of the cashier of the Bill Boutique. I never did learn her name, though I guess her and I had a lot more in common than I originally assumed if we both identified with one-letter names. To me, she was only ever the cashier. I guess she was the type to let her work define her. We turned the corner onto the street that looked very different from the rest of the gloomy city center. Here, the sky was still off-white in tint, but despite this, all the people had Yippie's eyes. Their eyes looked the way I imagined the wind element fairy's eyes might have looked in the fairy shop, if she was facing toward me. This city alcove was not rustic like Yippie's town. The buildings were not rustic like Caprice's town. The buildings that circulated it were still rectangular, just like in the city center. But here, there were birds, quite the many birds, pigeons, ravens, even a few robins. I was not sure why they all gathered here, but not in the city's square, until I noticed a few elderly locals emptying bird seeds from their pockets. The birds crowded around them and ate them from their hands. It reminded me of something you might see in a movie. It was only then that I realized how kind-hearted bird feeders must be. Bird feeders give others substance without expecting repayment. All they ask for in return was their company. I also saw vendors in the streets, but they were not pushy vendors like I've seen in the other cities in the past. The people of these vendors were reading or sketching or listening to music. Some even turned on their speakers and indie music for those who bypassed their vendors. The contents of the vendors were just as romantic as the marvelous shops in Caprice's town. One vendor sold stickers and compliments. It quite literally had a sign hanging from the booth that said, "Stickers, $1, sneakers, $10, compliments, free." One vendor was an artist trying to sell his paintings. They were really rather good. He painted the birds on the street, feeding off of the locals' hands across from him. The entire street seemed very colorful, though I much preferred sunny days to gloomy nights. Felt as though if I lived on this street, I wouldn't give the bleak skies on rainy days much thought at all. Yippee walked me up the steps to the purple building that matched their hair and nails. I wondered if it was an inspiration to them. Yippee opened the door and it chimed. They gestured for me to walk in ahead of them. "Oh," I said aloud. You wanted to take me to a bookshop?" I looked around. The books all looked tattered and half read. There were classics like Sense and Sensibility and Jane Eyre on the walls. I looked at the counter and noticed the others in the shop. Just like Yippee, they all had colorful hair. One had pink hair, another yellow, and another red. Had a red updo. So, this is where Yippee spent their days. "Yippee," I teased. You don't like books." "I like readers of books," Yippee winked. "What's new with the crew?" "Yippee, how's it going?" the colorful-haired guests exclaimed. One of them even embraced Yippee. "Got some fresh meat with you there?" I laughed to myself. Last time I was called fresh meat was when I worked at a deli for a few weeks one summer. When I wandered through the butcher section, seeking extra gloves for our station, they chanted, "Fresh meat coming through." Man, that was intimidating. "Yep, fresher than a daisy. This kid is a reader, so I figured best bring her to a bookshop." "Bringing me business, are you, Yippee?" said the pink-haired woman at the counter. "Not quite. I don't know if you've noticed, but I have a strong suspicion that bag on her back is probably all she owns. Well, excluding the bike outside. Speaking of, I put it beside Privy, short for frivolous," Yippee said, turning to me. "That dog will bark at anything. Did you feed her yet today?" "I didn't feed myself today," laughed the pink-haired woman. "Have you eaten today, reader?" "That's not my name," I said, feeling the need to correct them. "That's just what Yippee calls me. My name is actually V." "Any nickname of Yippie's is a nickname of mine." I laughed. Laughed the woman. "Pleased to meet you, V. I'm Mitty. Named after the secret life of Walter Mitty. My mother was a librarian. This here is Sunny." She pointed to the beautiful black woman with vibrant red hair. "That's Cherry." She pointed to the Asian man with blue hair. "And you see, Yippee, that's the crew." Everyone in this crew was in their mid-20s, with the exception of Yippee, who was the eldest of the group. "Hey, reader," said Yippee, "do you have any food on you?" We've got to feed the dog. I did actually have some food on me, but my supplies were limited and I needed to save it until I got to my final destination. Though I was still unsure where that was exactly. Yippee sensed I was hesitant to answer. He sighed. "Guess the dog will starve, and you'll lose your bite. Poor guard dog never gets the love they need." I knew I was not going to get out of it. "Oh, let me check my bag." I knew, knowing full well the contents. I only had one can of meaty chili left. I had eaten the rest when I was traveling. I was not stingy with saving the canned goods because the cans were on the heavy side, and as I ate them, I was lightening my load. Except this one was my last one. I had been saving it until this evening. I was already very hungry. Still, I surrendered the can. "I have one meaty chili," I told Yippee, "but I was saving it for—" "Ah, there we are," exclaimed Yippee, grabbing it from my hands. "Us starving artists had better starve together. Privy will love you for it. Her stomach had been growling all day. I could tell in the way she's been growling." She's normally a nice dog. I was not so sure about that. She did growl quite a bit for a supposed nice dog. Maybe she was just hungry. But I was hungry too. I didn't go growling at people like that. I'm going to go feed Frivy, said Yippee. Reader, you got two choices. Either come to feed Frivy or stay here inside with these losers. Yippee winked to their friends. She'll stay inside with us, laughed Sunny. You go feed that dog. If he goes, she might lose an arm. Frivy bites the fresh meat. Doesn't like newcomers, Sunny whispered to me. This group had a very strange sense of humor. So Yippee went out to feed Frivy, and the rest of the shop turned their attention back to me. How did you meet Yippee? Talkative, aren't they? Said Sunny. A little bit, I laughed. Actually, I met Yippee on the street. I was reading. They asked me for my book. Oh, what were you reading? Sunny asked. Wuthering Heights, I said. Geez, responded Cherry. Talk about a toxic relationship. Wait until you get to the end. Oh, I have already, I responded. I got to the end many times. This is my 5th time reading it. Or rather was. Oh, you finished it. Oh, did you finish it? Asked Sunny. For your 5th time reading it anyway? Not exactly, I laughed. Yippee traded it for another book. A little black one. They told me I was not allowed to look at it until I left, trying to respect their wish. What does Yippee want with a book? Laughed Mitty to Cherry. They can't read. They can't read? I asked, surprised. I don't think it was possible for someone to not know how to read in today's day and age. Well, they always say the words are backwards, explained Sunny. We think they might be dyslexic. They could learn if they wanted to, but Yippee doesn't want to. How could they not know how to read? I asked in shock. Yippee didn't go to school growing up, explained Cherry. They had a tough childhood. Yippee didn't come from the most supportive family. In fact, a lot of them weren't around for much of their life. Oh, poor Yippee. No wonder they wanted to talk about the cover so much. They could not read Wuthering Heights, and to them, the cover was all there was to talk about. What did Yippee mean by you leaving? Asked Sunny. You're welcome to stay. I don't know where they get this idea that everyone's always going. Oh no, Yippee was right about me, I began. I'm not from here. I met Yippee in the city center. I was just passing through. I was hoping to find some food, maybe rest a bit, and then keep riding. You're a peddler? Asked Jerry. He looked at my feet. Well, I suppose we should have known. You do not look like someone from the city center. You still have a heart, he snickered. You've got awfully nice shoes for a peddler, though. You can usually tell a peddler by their shoes, and yours look like to be in good shape. I had never heard someone refer to me as a peddler. Well, in all honesty, I've been traveling for very long, I explained. I want to be a singer, and I left my home to go pursue that, among other things. A singer, explained Sunny. A fellow musician. I play the guitar. Hell, sometimes I go to the coffee shops across the street for their open mics. Want to go perform? I was taken aback. What luck! To find a fellow musician in a town like this? Who do you listen to? I asked. Like, what genre do you play? I listen to anything, said Sunny. Music is music. I'm not glued to a genre. The hippies here don't get that, she said, poking fun at Cherry. A true nonconformist will listen to anything. Doesn't conform to the music their stereotypes like. I agreed with that statement. Hated when people told me what I was supposed to like. Music was like books. You could read bestsellers and the classics. You didn't have to be tethered to one over the other. It's brave of you two to be pursuing your goals like that, said Mitty. Not a lot of people would. Everyone plans to, said Sunny. The trick is in realizing that you can start at any time. You do not have to wait until next month or next year or until you're more experienced or out of school. You just have to start. That's the advice I took from The Alchemist. It's life's greatest secret, according to the king in the book, that is. Psst, said Cherry, mocking Sunny. That book is so short. Yo, why do you always read those such short books? You know, my mother always used to say, short books are designed for short attention spans. Cherry teased. I looked to the desk and saw that he was reading David Copperfield. Anyone who could read Charles Dickens needed quite a bit of patience. Oh, I don't know, started Sunny, looking toward me. I think there's something to be said about small books. Not a lot, said Cherry. That's the point. They're so small. Enough fighting, kids, mocked Mitty. But, Mom, Sunny played along. Cherry's being a brat. Hey, don't call me that, said Cherry. I'm not 5. Anyways, I have work in 10 minutes. I should be heading out over. I'll see you tonight, Sunny. I'll put you and V on the 9 o'clock slot. Nice to meet you, V. Hope you don't pedal away before you perform for us. Cherry left the shop, leaving Mitty, Sunny, and I to chat. Just as Cherry left, Yippee came back inside. What was that about you performing? They asked, staring back at me. Reader, you doing spoken word for us tonight at Cherry's shop? No, she's singing with me, said Sunny, strumming her hands as if she was playing an air guitar. Singing? A singer and a reader. This I gotta see, Yippee teased. Frippy liked your canned food. I went to Cherry's coffee shop and asked the new barista if I could use the microwave. I heated up a bit. Poor thing looked so confused. She's new. Another customer was asking for a mocha latte. She didn't even know what that was. I don't even think she drinks coffee. Takes a special kind of person to make other people coffee, but not drink any themselves. Takes a special kind of artist, corrected Yippee. Us artists can do anything. Actors play characters they don't know. They have to learn to identify with them. Artists talk about places they've never been. They have to make them up in their heads. They are constantly putting themselves into other people's shoes. Yippee was onto something. But something tells me this group discusses ideas pretty frequently with one another. Yeah, said Sunny. But, artists have a better life than the average person. I'm confident about that. Oh, and why's that? Laughed Yippee. Is it the days we starve or the days we get spit on by society? Neither and both, said Sunny. It's the days that society listens to us. A lot of people live their whole lives without ever being heard. Artists get to be heard. We're not the ones who get heard, said Yippee. It's our art that gets heard. Make no mistake. It is not you they're listening to. It's the art. That's why we put ourselves in the art, countered Mitty. Sunny's right. They do hear us. Let me tell you something, kids. Yippee pulled up a chair. We all know Shakespearean actors were looked down upon as the slum of society. That's common knowledge. The actors, the jests, the fools, they were considered the bottom feeders. That was until they were put on stage. Then they became something important. Hell, what if Shakespeare did not get popular? They would have been the epitome of the lowlife. The real tragedy is not in the play, but in the life of the artist. Look at you, Sonny, you're reading The Alchemist. But I told you to follow your dreams a million times. Remember when I told you months ago that you should record an album? But you don't take that seriously until some king and jewels told you that and was life's biggest secret or whatever you were going off about. Reader, you just finished Wuthering Heights. If you really wanted a romance, you could have talked to someone with a broken heart. I know hundreds of people. I'll give you their names. And you, Mitty, encouraging it all in this house of books. Books are fine and all. Books are fun. But the words are always backwards. Let me tell you something. Isn't it a little backward that we all read about our life lessons when we should be going out and living them? Yippee, I get what you're saying, but sometimes one just wants to learn from books. They just don't resonate with you the same way that they do with others, retorted Mitty. Yes, and all is well when one learns from books and music and dance and paintings, but further still, I wonder, is there art to be found in the artist? There is an artist to be found in the art, answered Sunny. So, by that logic, yes, there should be art in the artist. Then, why don't we see it? Yippee asked. I see it, Sunny explained. Well, yes, Sunny, you're different. You hug strangers on the subway when they look like they're in a bad mood, and everyone in this city is in a bad mood, so you give out a lot of hugs. That's not the point, Sunny. I didn't mean you. You are an artist. Of course you're going to see the art in the artist. You see the art in everything. I mean this. Why don't the people with bob cuts listen to the advice of the artist, unless they see the artist in the art? Some people need a little extra help seeing art in everything, Sunny responded. We just help them. Interesting, returned Yippee. See, reader, not all of life's questions go unanswered. Sometimes you don't even have to read, though, to find those answers. All right, kids, it's time for me to go collect stardust. I am off, but don't pedal off until I get to see you perform, reader. Then I give you permission to fly the coop. Yippee left the bookstore and the bell chimed as they left. Perspective of the narrator, aka Angel. Yippee is a lovable person. That is clear to anyone who meets them and truly gets to know them. Yippee is quite lovable because they love everyone, even when they are snubbed by the bob cuts and the buzz cuts of the city center. Yippee despite being rich in love, is poor in finance. Yippee is a beggar. Now, this they do not tell their friends in the bookshop. The only one of Yippie's friends who knows of their financial struggle is Mitty. This shared knowledge was how the two became such trusted friends. Beggars can sympathize with other beggars. Mitty knew far too intimately what it was like to struggle for money, and so she offered Yippie a shower and a place to sleep. When Mitty closed the book shop at night, and she let Yippie sleep inside on the couch in the back room. This was only on some nights. On others, Mitty's employee, Cross, was working in the shop. He did not permit Yippie to sleep on the couch in the back room. This was against the wishes of the owner, but Yippie never snitched. They knew that if they had, Cross would be fired. Yippie knew that if Cross were fired, he would have to find a job in the city center because his bitter attitude did not align well with that of the tiny artistic alcove, and most people despised him for it. Yippie did not wish for anyone to have to work in the city center. To reduce someone to a life in the city center was a crime in their mind. On the nights Cross worked the shop, Yippie would go into the streets and sleep in the alleyways of the city center. And they did not want their friends stumbling across them in the street. Yippie was unemployed, and they could not read, and they suffered from a physical injury ironically acquired from work. This prevented them from obtaining either an office or labor job. Yippie had never received the compensation they were promised for the work injury. As a consequence, they starved. As an aside, even if Yippie was literate, they did not have an extensive resume. Their childhood was too consumed with combating financial struggles and coping with parental neglect to think of the future. But don't feel bad for Yippie. They wouldn't want that. Yippie considers themselves to be well-versed and blessed, since they knew Mitty, who would let them shower and sleep in the bookshop. Yippie was quick to make friends with anyone who made their acquaintance, and was never snobbish toward anyone, not even if they had been snobbish toward them. When Yippie ventured the streets at night to beg, they imagined they were collecting stardust rather than silver coins, and they slid the sparkling coins into the carrying purse. Yippie rarely ate, even if they had collected enough stardust from the night. Instead, they chose to feed the street dogs. Yippie fed the street dogs more frequently than they fed themselves. They always took care of the aimless, directionless creatures that roamed the streets. They were so lovable and free, Yippie knew that they would never be able to feed them back. But something about them looked familiar. Yippie saw something in their eyes. Vi admired Yippie, though she didn't all that much understand them. For some strange reason, Yippie did not feel compelled to be understood. Perhaps that was why they never showed anyone the art that they made. Until they met Vi, that is, though I won't spoil it. I will make my return when tragedy ensues, dear reader. I ask that you do not miss me, for in missing me, you are wishing tragedy on Vi. Back to Vi's perspective. So, what are you going to perform tonight? Sunny asked, staring back at me. Well, what covers do you know? I asked. I wasn't sure how long she had been playing the guitar for. Oh no, said Sunny. You aren't getting off that easy. Original stuff. Every singer has original songs. I doubt you've been performing covers all your life. I laughed. Sunny was a clever girl. Clever girls saw right through facades, so there was no point in upholding one around them. I don't sing my originals in front of crowds, I said, shuddering to myself, considering how embarrassing that would be. Well, today you do, responded Sunny. I believe that anyone can be coerced into anything if they have even an ounce of curiosity. For instance, you don't normally let strangers lead you to random streets you've never been down before, do you? Sunny asked. No, not really, I laughed. Well, that doesn't seem true by the way in which you let Yippie lead you here. Fine. Okay. There is one song we could do, but I've never performed it live before. Why don't you perform something you like, and I'll just accompany you? Oh, no. I have performed at this place 3 or 4 times for 6 months. They're used to me. In fact, 3 times a week for 6 months. They're used to me. In fact, I think I've played them every song I wrote. I've done covers, sure, but I've never done someone else's original. It seems so personal and so riveting to do someone's original in its first performance. I want to try it, Sunny said. So, there is this one song we can do, I started. I wrote it at a ravine once. It's about a star. Perfect! Let's do it! Show me the lyrics and I'll write us some chords. The evening ensued, and Sunny and I were finally finished with our piece. Mitty maintained the bookshop. It was well populated for a used bookshop. Customers came and went from the shop rather frequently. It was quick to discover the shop established a reputable name for itself in this area. Sunny played an electric guitar. She said acoustic was too quiet for her. As a consequence, we ended up converting her song into punk rock. Then, I wrote the lyrics. When I wrote the lyrics, I intended it to be more popish. I enjoyed the transformed version, and now I preferred it to its original counterpart. Customers came and went from the shop throughout the day as we went. Very few bob-cut clients entered the shop. The ones who did seem friendly were usually accompanied by the person with crazy hairdo. I fit in perfectly here with the loud curls, as you call them. I really liked it here. This alcove felt like home, even with the bob cuts and buzz cuts wandering through. I contemplated staying here. It felt so quaint and so perfect. And Sunny and I hit it off. Mitty and Cherry were so receptive of my company, and Yippee was an angel, though a part of me knew something did not feel quite right in this city, even on the outskirts of this artistic little forethought. Something about it seemed off. I didn't think it would have been able to stay any longer than a night or two. By the time Mitty closed up shop, we had completed the song. We walked down together to Cherry's coffee shop. I saw the struggling barista and sympathized for her. I bought a small coffee I couldn't afford. My mother had always taught me that when you're using someone else's space, especially a coffee shop, you should give them something in return. Put cinnamon and honey in the coffee I ordered. I didn't like coffee all that much. It was too bitter. This particular coffee shop was Harry Potter themed. To enter, one would have to put on a guessing hat to know where they were going to be seated. Orders had been taken at the counter. Each customer filled out a little Hogwarts-themed acceptance letter. Just like the wedding invitation, each customer had to fill out what they were going to eat and or drink. In this case, you were required to fill out what your coffee order was to be. Each roast belonged to a different house. Dark roast belonged to Slytherin. Ice mochas were for the Hufflepuffs. The Ravenclaws drank espresso, and the Gryffindors drank any medium roast with a mystery pump of either chocolate, vanilla, mint, or sometimes caramel. They sold chocolate toads, like in the novels, and the pretzel sticks were dripped in chocolate to make them appear like magic wands. The place was rightfully a success amongst the city, and a lot of the city center residents would travel to an artistic alcove to drink in this particular coffee shop. At the side of the room, there was a small stage set with a microphone, a few guitars, a keyboard, and an amp. Sunny brought her own guitar. Sunny bought her own guitar and she plugged it into the amp. I saw Yippee and Mitty talking at the tables. They were in earshot, so I was able to listen to their conversation. Poor Reader, said Yippee to Mitty. She doesn't have a family anymore. We don't either, observed Mitty. I haven't spoken to my mother in years. Not like that, said Yippee. We have each other. Rita doesn't have anyone but the characters in her books. Maybe she'll choose to stay, Mitty observed. I think I like Bee. Her and Sunny seem to be getting along, and I'm sure Cherry likes her too. I have no doubt they'll go on long tangents about long books they've read to each other. No, replied Yippee. Reader won't stay. She has sea salt in her hair. She has to go to the sea. Again with the sea salt. Why did so many people smell sea salt in my hair? I didn't even like swimming all that much. It was then that I realized this would be my last night in the small alcove by the city center. It just had to be that way. Are you ready to perform? Sunny said, and Sunny looked at me with eager eyes. Yes, I can honestly say that I am. Describing music is sort of difficult. Everyone knows you have to hear it, but I'll try anyway. Picture for a moment that you are in a Harry Potter-themed cafe in a strange little alcove in an even stranger city. You see Cherry from the corner of your eye. He turns the bright overhead light to his shop to a low dim. You hear the screech over a microphone. Technical error. Everyone in the shop cringes. You accidentally put Sunny's amp a little too close to a microphone. You look out into the audience and you see a sea of both bob cuts and rainbow hair. You clear your throat, not because you need to, but because you are nervous. Then you start to sing a chorus, and you had written weeks ago in a tiny notebook on the bridge. It is about achieving your dreams, and you feel guilty for singing about it because you have not achieved yours yet. But you sing it anyways. It has a punk rock vibe to it, not even though it was originally intended to be popish. The electric guitar turns it into something you did not expect it to be, but you go along with it because you like it anyways. Yep, thinks Yippee to themselves. I thought I was able to get to read off of their face, even despite them not saying a word. She's got sea salt in her hair and stardust in her eyes. Cool. So, that was chapter 5. Stardust. So, I really like that chapter because I really like Yippee. So, yeah, anyway, without my comments, Dream Catalyst is available on Amazon.com on the US site. Link in description, also on my Instagram bio. And yeah, thanks for sticking along. Tune in next week for chapter 6. And yeah, thank you for sticking around and listening to my book. And yeah, I hope you like it so far. Make sure, if you get the chance, leave an Amazon review for me, even if you don't buy the book, just so that potential buyers can see it and get an honest review from you. If you also want to leave in the comments down some suggestions or just opinions or anything like that, go for it. Thank you for sticking around. Much appreciated. Come back next week for chapter 6.